Good morning, everybody. Mark Gilbert here again with you. It's great to be back with you on the Saturday morning Science of Mind conversation series. And this particular week, we're going to be looking at chapter 6, which is entitled Man's Relationship to the Spiritual Universe. This, of course, is always from the Science of Mind textbook by Ernest Holmes, which is what we've been looking at. And as you know, throughout the first part of the year, we review the book chapter by chapter and discuss it with you. So I want to invite you to go along and join along with us this morning. If you've got your book, you can see the pages there, 106 to 128, that we will be discussing this morning. And as always, I encourage you that if you're watching to drop your name and location in the chat. We always like to hear who is here from different locations. And thank you, Wayne, tuning in from Calgary, Canada today. We appreciate having you here. And as others join in, hope to see you drop your name in the chat as well. We'll bring your name up. We'll also look for some questions from you, questions around this particular chapter of man's relationship to the spiritual universe. So get your books out, and if you've got one, and you can follow along on some of the readings that we'll have this morning, some of the things. But mainly, I'm going to be setting up some questions for a little while that we can riff on and discuss. And so that is the key thing that I want us to do. So again, watching live, share your name and location in the comment field. And the first question I want to start with this morning is the question of what do we mean by man's relationship to the spiritual universe? What do we mean by man's relationship to the spiritual universe? And hello to Shay. Good morning. Good to see you with us this morning, as always. Appreciate you joining in. And, one of the things when we talk about, I got to start off by looking at the fact that Ernest Holmes, when he wrote, it was in the earliest part of the first half of the 20th century. And, he passed away in 1960. And all of his writings, and as was the tradition at the time, was that they used the masculine names for standing in for humanity. Of course, we've changed since then. Now we are more inclusive in our language. So when Holmes writes in the Science of Mind textbook, in the heading of this chapter, Man's Relationship to the Spiritual Universe, he's really referencing all of humanity. So don't get hung up. I know sometimes some of the classes I teach, people wish we would use more inclusive language, and sometimes there is a movement by the Science of Mind magazine to update some of the older language. But when we're looking at the textbook and the language that's in there, I think we just need to get in the habit of going, okay, this was at an earlier time when the word man meant humanity. So we'll take the question really is, what do we mean by humanity's relationship to the spiritual universe? And so that's what the whole chapter is about, but we're going to be talking about that in greater detail. Good morning, Linda. Linda Plasters, wonderful to have you with us today. Joining in. Again, anybody who is joining in, be sure to drop a comment in the comment field and let us know where you are. Jonah Shane, good morning, Jonah. It's great to have you as well. And like I say, always put your name and location in the comment field if you're okay putting the location. Also drop a question if you've got a question about Science of Mind in general, or about this particular chapter, or anything that I'm saying. Feel free to drop that in the chat, and I'll try to bring it in to the conversation as appropriate. So let's get back to the question. What do we mean by humanity's relationship to the spiritual universe? I'm going to read a quote from the very beginning of this chapter, and then I'm going to elaborate on it for a moment. He starts the chapter by saying, man, and again, humanity, reenacts the nature of God. And then that's the heading. And then it says, whatever is true of the universe as a whole must also be true of the individual as some part of this whole. Man is evolved from the universe as a self-conscious thinking center of living spirit. And as such, he must, in his nature and being, reproduce the universe. And over on the next page, continuing about into the third paragraph down at the end, he says, a single drop of water is not the whole ocean, but it does contain within itself the same qualities and attributes. Humanity, or man, is made out of life. So what is he saying there? What is he saying there? We often talk about the fact that the spirit, God, the whole, the thing itself, all of the universe is the macrocosm of all that is, and that man reproduces that in the microcosm of his individual life. So when we talk about individuals, you and I, people reproducing the life at the individual level, what we're recognizing is that the spirit, the entity spirit, created this universe and embedded itself into the universe and all of its qualities into the universe. And so we sit here as individuals who are living and moving and having our being in a divine flow of God and energy. And all of the qualities of God, the all, the thing itself, whatever name we want to use for it, are embedded into its creation. So these bookshelves behind me and the books and all the stuff you see and all the things that are in your room, all this technology, us as individual expressions of the one as people, all of us are embedded with the divine qualities. And those include love, the urge to grow and evolve, the desire to express our creative expressions and things in the world, the ability to learn and move through and enjoy this human experience. So ultimately, what we come to recognize is that we are spiritual beings who are having this human experience. And we get locked into the very nature that we are humans because that's in our interactions every day. That is the stuff that's in our face that we have to see and know and react to. But what we really want to recognize is that we're more than that. We're more than that. And in fact, one of the ways I like to teach it, and we're going to get to this in a few minutes, in a quote from Holmes, is the reflection that God, the Spirit, the infinite, it stands outside its creation, but it embedded itself into its creation. It embedded its characteristics into us, and we are evolving back into that awareness. And so we are on a scale of evolution, a scale of moving back into recognizing our unity with the divine, a scale of moving up and recognizing that we are co-creators of the universe with God, that all of the characteristics and the creative ability, the ability to use our thinking to manifest stuff within the world of form, this physical universe, that's all embedded within us. And it is for us to learn that and to express it in our individual lives. And so when we talk about our relationship to the spiritual universe, what Holmes is talking about is the fact that we are working through this world, learning and remembering the truth of who we are and the truth of how we can be co-creators of our lives. We're not victims just being buffeted about by worldly affairs. It can seem that way if we believe that is the truth. That is our way of using our divine power to manifest a world where we're buffeted about by worldly affairs. But we also have within us the ability to change our thoughts and to move towards seeing ourselves as conscious co-creators of the life that are the greatest expression of what we want to be. So our relationship is to learn that. It's to understand that we are embedded with divine qualities. So when Holmes talks about whatever is true of the universe as a whole, meaning that it has within it the creative ability, life, love, the evolutionary force, harmony and peace and joy, all of the aspects of the whole are also in us as individuals on this planet. And it's our role and our relationship with it to learn that. And so that is the relationship that we are developing. It's to moving out of our sense of separation, our sense of being this individual separate and apart from everything, and to moving into seeing ourselves as in unity with everything that is, and that we're self-conscious creators of the universe. So that is what he means by humans' relationship to the spiritual universe. So again, if you're watching live, share your name in the chat. Be sure to drop a question if you've got anything about a question about anything in this particular chapter about man's relationship to the spiritual universe. Love to hear your thoughts on any of this. And let's see, Leandra, good morning, Leandra. Great to have you with us today. Good to have a number of you listening in. And we've been looking for the last few minutes of what's this relationship of our relationship to the spiritual universe. And I really wanted you to get this sense that we are in this flow, a flow of energy, a flow of stuff working from the world of non-form into the world of form, the non-material realm into the material realm. And although it seems like all of our lives are in this material realm, I want you to stop and recognize the fact that right now you're having thoughts, You're thinking about what I'm saying. You're thinking about what you're going to be doing this day. So within your head are aspects of a non-material realm. And every once in a while, we taste uh, intuition, divine messages that we may receive. And in those messages are representations of something that reminds us that we transcend the world of form. So something in us knows that we are bigger, greater, grander than the stuff around us, that we're not just simply a physical being, that we're much more than that. And so it's only as we move up in our vibratory scale, move up in our levels of consciousness, and move up to the greater expressions of who we are that we're really truly um, getting towards the essence of who we truly are. So uh, that is sort of an answer to that question to a degree. If you've got a question about that answer, feel free to jump in and drop a question in. Again, drop in your name and where you're from. Want to just get a good sense of who all's here. Anyway, thank you for that, and let's move on to another question. And the question that comes to us in regards to this particular chapter, which is all about this interactions of us as humanity with the spiritual universe, the entire, the all, the physical realms of dimensions and the multiverse in which we live and move. The whole chapter is about that. So one of the things he talks about in this chapter a good bit is that the world has learned all it should through suffering. That's the heading of the next section. The world has learned all it should through suffering. And the question I've posed to us is, how does our freedom cause us to suffer? Because if you look over on page 109, let me just read a quick quote from Holmes on this page. He says, if there had been a way by which the divine creative principle could have compelled man to suddenly appear on the scene of experience, full orbed with all his freedom and still be an individual, then verily by this law would there have been done. But even God could not do this. The only way God the only way God can evolve the spontaneous individual is to let him alone and allow him to awaken to himself. What exactly is he saying there? Well, let's get back to the idea that we have within us these divine characteristics. And that might raise the question, and Holmes addresses this in other locations in the book, as to why does God or the divine create this universe and embed itself into us? Why does any of this exist? And one of the things that he talks to the nature of that is that it is for God to express its creative abilities. God, the infinite, the thing itself, creates the universe as a way for it to express its creative abilities. It's a way for it to be in movement, for itself to be in growth, for itself to experience itself. So in a sense, we're each and every one of us are pockets of God, expressing as God and experiencing life for the divine. So we're here for, as Aurobindo writes, we're here for the delight of the divine. We're here for the divine to get the joy of the experience and the multidimension in which we live and move. And so we're here in that relationship. Now, one aspect of that is that if we were embedded with all the characteristics of the divine and knew that from day one, would we truly have freedom? Would we have the freedom to choose our lives? Would we have the freedom of, or what we call free will, to make it one choice over another choice? And what Holmes writes about a lot in this particular chapter is the fact that we all have freedom to choose one thing over another thing. Now, I know in many times it looks in our life like that's not the case. It looks like all of the worldly affairs and the stuff going on out there is sort of like preordaining what's going on in our lives. But our lives really do have a degree of freedom. If we stop and think about it, you have a choice whether raise your hand or not raise your hand. It seems like, is this preordained? Is the next word I'm going to say preordained? Is what you're going to do later today preordained? I think when we stop and really consider it, we really feel that although it seems like much of our life is that buffeted about stuff that I was talking about a moment ago, that we really do have the ability in moments of choice when we're conscious of it, that we can choose one thing over another thing. Now, back to freedom. Why do we have that freedom? Why that includes the ability not to know that we are divine, not to know that we are conscious co-creators. If we knew that from the outset, if the divine had embedded in us a remembrance of our truth that we came from unity in the divine, then that, in a degree, would limit our freedom. So the greatest freedom for us is to come into this world, to come into this universe, not knowing that we are pockets of consciousness of the divine, co-creators of our universe, etc. If we knew that at the outset, that would limit our choices to be for the greatest and the highest good for always and for all. But what we have is the freedom to choose and experience things, including things that are less than what we want, that are less than. So we actually can choose suffering. We can actually choose to suffer in life. Now, it sounds odd because you think, well, I don't choose to suffer. I don't want to suffer. But Holmes is saying that at the base level, we really are. Because when we have forgotten our truth and our unity and our connectedness to God, we often can make choices that are not in our best interest. We do things that are self-sabotaging. You can think about it in your individual lives. Where is it that you have thoughts and beliefs that are limiting yourself? If you think I'm not good enough to do something, or I'm not worthy, I don't deserve a high-paying job, I don't deserve a good relationship, I don't deserve the material things of life that I just truly desire. If you think I don't have the talents and abilities to do certain things, anytime you place a limit on yourself, you are using the power of the freedom to choose the less than path for your life. And so what Science of Mind teaches, and what Holmes encourages us to do, is to change that thinking, to see that we are worthy, we are good, that we are divine beings, and that we can create in our individual lives highest and best expressions of whatever it is that we desire. So, how does our freedom cause us to suffer? As he's talking about on page 109 and the pages around there, he has referenced the fact that because we have been embedded with God, but have also been allowed to forget the truth of where we came from, it gives us a wider range of choices in life. And that wider range of choices includes making choices that are not in our highest best interest, that are not in the best interest of the all. Because if we knew at the outset that we were divine and everything was interconnected, then we would always make choices that were in the best interest of God, the best interest of the all, the best interest of of everyone everywhere. But we have to come to that realization on our own. We have to come to that realization on our own. Leander writes, I've heard we are so free we can choose bondage. And that's what Holmes is actually writing here about. In fact, the section that I'm quoting from here, Leander, is called Freedom or Bondage. And what Holmes writes about is that very thing, that when we make a choice to limit ourselves, we are choosing bondage. Bondage, has some different meaning in the modern. It almost seems like, you're wrapped up in ropes and tied up and that kind of thing. But mentally, we are tied up. Mentally, we are tied up when we think that we don't have the ability to do anything that we want, or that we don't have the skills, abilities, or worthiness to manifest the highest and best of what we desire in our lives. Then that is an area of bondage. We're tied up and kept from our ultimate freedom. Our ultimate freedom is to be able to use the free will choice to choose a different path, to choose a different thought. If we're thinking that in limitation, then we are going to create limitation. There's a wonderful quote here on a page I skipped over. I'm just going to paraphrase it. It's somewhere in this particular chapter, but he says that the more the world prepares for war, the more it's certain that war will occur. And we see that in our lives right now. We can look out at the life on this planet and see so many situations where humanity in general is creating limitations for the highest expression of humanity. When we think that war is the only option, when we arm ourselves for war, we're mentally thinking there's got to be war. And that's the same thing in our own lives. When we go through our individual lives and we have a sphere of influence in which we control. We can look at the world out there, what's going on with, the stuff in Gaza and the stuff in Ukraine and all the conflicts that are on the planet, and think, well, what do I have, that I can change that. I'm just this one little person. Well, first off, I would say you are more than that, because you are a divine being and you can use the power of your thoughts and follow it up with your actions to make a difference towards anything that we're doing, to help shift opinions and to help create a new world. If nothing else, just go into prayer and put the intentions into the divine consciousness that this is what we want to manifest, and never forget that we have the ability to pray and think that at a level that can impact the bigger scale of events. But I want to get back to the fact that at the very beginning of it, we can think about the sphere of influence that we have in our individual lives, and we have choices in our lives. And so, are we choosing peace? Are we choosing love? Are we choosing prosperity and abundance? Are we choosing expressing our creative abilities? Or are we limiting them? If we limit them by saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, we can't do that. Anytime you have a not can't thought, that's the bondage. Anytime that you shift that, you are expressing your freedom, the freedom to be the highest expression of who you can be. Freedom's always there, but it's the use of our freedom to limit ourselves that creates the bondage. Okay? So, realizing we can choose is the ultimate freedom. Absolutely. Realizing we can choose. And that's really what our relationship with the spiritual universe is about. It's understanding this pattern that we've been embedded with divine qualities and characteristics, that we have the ability to choose, that we have free will choice, etc. And that we're on this evolutionary journey back to remembering our oneness and our wholeness. And when we do that, that shift, and when we start remembering that, that's why spiritual practices are so important, because they help us taste a higher expression. It's I teach this, and I mentioned it a minute ago, but you can sort of imagine that we're in a physical realm here, and up here is the spiritual realm. And there are many, many levels in between. It's a scale of unity. It's a sliding scale of divineness. Down here, up here, spirit embedded itself to everything, and everything is evolving back up to the divine. Okay. And what this path is our spiritual path. It's our return to wholeness, our return to the recognizing our unity in the oneness. But getting up there is not the end. It's to take that awareness and bring it back into the world of form with a new consciousness, a consciousness of unity that says everything is connected, everything is love, and to know that you have the ability to create that better world. So your individual path is to return to wholeness and oneness in your consciousness, and then to come back into the world of form with that awareness, so that you can then manifest that world and create heaven here on earth. If everybody on the planet had a consciousness of oneness and saw their interconnectivity, we would have levels of care and concern for each other. We would want each other to express their own creative abilities to the highest expression. We would want no one to have any harm. We would want everybody to be safe and secure and to live the highest and fullest life. If we truly, truly all got our unity as a one, that every individual expression on this planet is interconnected with us at some level. If we truly got that at the deepest level of our being, then we would have to change in who we are on this particular planet. So that's how does our freedom cause us to suffer? And let me just mention that on the sliding scale stuff, and I'm going to throw my website up there. Some people always want to know, how can you find out more about my writings and teachings? I do YouTube videos and write a blog site. It's at consciousbridge.com. You can access my YouTube channel through that, where I do a lot of speaking relative to the topics that we're talking about today. One of the things I've been talking a lot about is the scale of unity, of moving up the scale, up the vibratory scale in our consciousness, and that every day we move along that scale. We can shift from, when we're in meditation, we're a little higher into our awareness of spirit. When we're honking our horn at people in traffic, we're maybe at the lower range of it. But our desire is to, as a spiritual being, and recognizing our spiritual beingness, is to start moving up that scale of unity in our awareness, so that we can then act from that particular manner of life. And that's where we're going. Encourage you to check out my website, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and check out other things that I'm doing. Anyway, let's see what. Oh, I want to throw another question up there, and it's self-evident at this point. What is evil? what is evil? We tend to think that evil is a thing. We tend to think that evil is a thing. So much of our media and movies and uh, the traditional teachings of the Christian faith relative to the Bible and other religions as well often teach that there's this opposite force from the goodness of God that is the evil, and that it's the evil that we're fighting against. So everything is seen as this battle between good and evil. And that's not what Holmes taught. That's not what Science of Mind teaches. And it should be evident now that if we're truly using our freedom of choice to choose love, goodness, abundance, prosperity, unity, if we're making the choices that are in the realm of spirit and oneness, then we're not making choices that are quote unquote evil. But we define evil as an incorrect use of the law. So when you're making choices that are put us in bondage, those choices that come from a sense that everybody's separate and apart from one another are choices that are evil. We often say evil is missing the mark, which is an old archery term, which means that we're aiming at something and we miss it. We're aiming at our unity and we're missing it because we're ending up in divisiveness. When we focus our attention on the fact that we are separate and apart and competition from one another, then we get into this struggle between me and you, good and bad, right and wrong. And it's when what we label as wrong or bad and see them as a force, that's what often people call as evil. But we call evil is simply our incorrect use of our free will choices to choose the choice that is not in alignment with our unity and oneness. So if I choose to see you as separate and apart from me, then I might feel like I'm in competition with you. I got to one up you. I've got to do better than you. I've got to have more stuff than you. I've got to cut you off in traffic, et cetera, et cetera. It's all stuff where we see ourselves, sort of fighting with one another. And so there is not, in the Science of Mind perspective, evil as a thing. Evil is a misuse of our law of the divine. Here's how Holmes puts it on page 111. Evil is not a thing of itself. It is simply a misuse of the law of freedom. Simply a misuse of the law of freedom. And he goes on, this is again on page 111. At the end of that paragraph, right before the heading on spirit, soul, and body, he writes, when the whole world sees the right and does it, then and not until then will the problem of evil be solved for the entire race. Humanity will not get rid of the appearance of evil until everyone chooses right. Now, elsewhere in the Science of Mind textbook, Holmes addresses the question of when do we know a choice is right? And I loved his answer on it. I don't think it's in this particular chapter we're looking at today, but he says that you know a choice is right if it brings more life, love, happiness, joy, harmony. If it brings more God qualities, essentially, to the planet and does no harm to someone else, then a choice is good. And that's a good yardstick for all of us to use. If you're looking at making a choice in life, say, well, which choice is going to bring more life, love, joy, harmony, peace, and not harm anybody at the same time? If your answer is this choice does it more than this choice, then that helps you decide which choice is more appropriate. So again, evil, misuse of our law of freedom. And yeah, thank you, Leandra. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And if you've got a question, this goes for anybody and everybody who's watching. Feel free. If you've got a question relative to what we're discussing, we'll throw it up and use it. Would love to ask some questions and comments that are relative to the conversation. And otherwise, I have some questions that I've previously prepared, just to ensure that we are moving along and giving you some food for thought. So let's look at another particular question beyond what is evil. And what is the connection between spirit and the material universe? And this is over on page 116. What is the connection between spirit and the material universe? And let me jump over there for a minute. And a couple of quotes he's reading. And I've been hitting around this. I've been talking around this whole this morning anyway. Uh, but here's right in the middle of the page. He says, we analyze the body, and the body is I think he's talking our human bodies right now. We analyze the body. It's made of the same stuff from which a brick is made. Not different in its essence, but different in its composition, its vibration. So he's recognizing that all the stuff in the physical universe is similar in its essence, but it's vibrating at different levels. It gets back to that sliding scale stuff I was talking about a minute ago, where things vibrate at a higher level as we move up the scale. In fact, it's often said that sometimes the lowest levels of the physical form stuff are vibrating so slowly that they don't appear to move at all. And spirit, the highest levels of spirit, the highest levels of this unity of consciousness, this unity of the divine, is vibrating so fast it appears not to be moving. So either end appears not to be moving. Well, one is because it's so slow, and one because it's so high. So in any case, all the stuff down here in the physical world, it's all vibrating, but at different levels. But it's all spiritual stuff. And he says this on 116. I'm going to continue reading. He says, we are told that matter is not a solid, stationary thing, but a constantly flowing, formless substance, which is forever coming and going, an etheric whirl of energy. Everything is energy and form. So we think about Einstein's equation, energy equal mass times the constant. What that's saying is on two equations, on one side of the scale is energy, and on the other side is stuff. Energy flows into stuff, stuff flows into energy. There's a constant movement. And the stuff is in form is spirit in sort of a temporary solid state. And then it moves out of it back into its energetic form, and it's spirit in a liquid state. So it's liquid, it's form, it's liquid, it's form. There's a continuous movement of the spiritual stuff into the essence of the temporary nature of things that we experience as physical things. And so anyway, just continuing on this page, he says, the bodies we now have were not with us a short time ago. We discard many of them on our path through this life, for the substance of which they are composed is in a constant state of flow, a flowing substance taking the form that mind gives it. All right. So what's the connection between spirit and the material universe? Everything is spirit. Everything is God. Things that don't appear to be in the material realm are spirit in a liquid form, a non-frozen temporary state. But the power of our thinking, the power of our minds, the power of our conscious choice allows us to freeze that liquid spirit into a temporary state of form that we experience as the manifest universe. And then when its form has served its purpose, it dissolves back into the liquid state of spirit. Okay. Fiona, joining us from Geneva. Always good to have you, Fiona. Glad you're with us today. Thanks for joining us. And again, everyone, be sure to drop a question in the comments. If there's something I'm talking about that you want to comment on or have a further question about, I'd love to hear something relevant to what we're saying. Fiona writes, I believe that we live in a cosmogenesis, so eternally continuous. Yes, yes. There is this... it's a divine flow. It really is. You know, one of the things we could chat about is the fact that, and I mentioned this earlier back at the beginning, as to why we can only suppose in our limited nature as human beings to imagine why the divine or God created this universe and this flow and this process in which we find ourselves. And I mentioned that Holmes likes to say that we're here for the divine or the thing itself to express itself, to express its creative abilities, and to experience itself through us and through all of its creation. Spirit or God is expressing and creating and experiencing itself through the books in the room and all the stuff here, the air, this technology, my voice. It's experiencing all of this through us. Sri Aurobindo, who I love, and Holmes writes about him in that book, Holmes at Asilomar. They mentions this Aurobindo many times, but I've been reading Aurobindo's Life Divine, and Aurobindo likes to talk about the fact that the spirit or God, we are here for the delight of spirit or God, and that it we are the delight. So what we're doing is delighting the divine, and I like that. It's kind of a beautiful way to think of it. That we our free will choice and our abilities to stuff at some level is always delighting this higher expression of spirit. And the other thing to keep in mind in all of this nature, this flow, is that outside of the physical universe is God, spirit, the all. It's although it embedded itself into the universe, it sits outside of it in a state of constant being. But in its creation, us, it is constantly in a state of becoming. And so you have this wonderful, interesting dynamic tension between a never changing constancy of being of God and a total movement of totally always becoming more through the experiences of the divine, through its expression through us. And as we started out this chapter today, that we are microcosms, that we are expressing the divine through in our lives as spiritual beings. But we also have within us anchored this non-changing state of beingness that is always in a state of becoming. That desire, that urge to move and push ourselves and to learn and grow, express our creative talents, etc., is all part of that state of becoming. So it's an interesting thing. We're beings and becomings. We're human beings, but we're spiritual becomings. You could look at it that way. In any case, so that we sort of covered here what is the connection between spirit and the material universe. And I want to jump to one more question. And again, anybody else who has a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. But let's see. And I've been talking about this all through this program today. But Holmes references a scale of unity over on page 123 and 124. And I've been mentioning this, and this is something that if you're familiar with me and my website and my YouTube channel, again, consciousbridge.com, I've been talking a lot about, and when I've been doing a lot of guest speaking at spiritual centers lately and teaching classes, I always want to get this visual in people's minds. The visual that I was giving you earlier of material world, spiritual realm. Down here, we think we're separate and apart. Up here, we know we're unified in oneness, and that we're growing in vibrations. As we vibrate faster, grow in our consciousness, we're moving upward into spirit. And when we get sucked into the world of form and all the drama and stuff that's going on in lives and feel like we're victims, we slide back down. And our goal is really to move upwards in consciousness and to take that awareness and bring it back into the world of form and make choices that are in alignment with us being in unity. That's really what we're about. But looking at page, it was 123 and 124. I'm starting on the bottom of 123, and this is several places. Holmes makes this quote about this evolutionary arc of stuff. He says, we observe in creation an atomic intelligence. Now, atoms, he's talking about intelligence being in atoms. That's what he means here. Then a simple consciousness, after which comes a personal consciousness, then a cosmic consciousness. He's showing a scale of consciousness that's moving from atoms to simple organisms to a personal consciousness, which is where we are. We have a sense of being persons, having a sense of thinking about our thoughts. Elsewhere, Holmes writes that we crossed a threshold in our evolution where we became aware that we were aware. Okay. That's that personal consciousness when we are aware of our senses as a person. And then a cosmic consciousness, which is something as humans we can actually taste. Holmes and his cosmic consciousness experience that, you can hear audios of it online. There's one on my website. He had this experience of where he felt interconnected with all it was. I've had that feeling myself in certain moments of lucid dreams and meditations of this experience that transcends the human form. It's a taste of a cosmic consciousness, a truth that we know that where we transcend these limitations of being separate individuals. So he says that we move up the scale from atomic consciousness, a simple consciousness, to a personal consciousness, then a cosmic consciousness. And he says these variations of consciousness are definitely defined and accepted by most investigators. As we watch the transition from the atomic to the simple intelligence, from the simple to the personal, and from the personal to the cosmic, we find that we are merely going up a scale of unity. In other words, as we move up the scale, it's all one. It's all one. It's just a shift. It's just a shift. He says the spirit is not something apart from matter, so-called, but it's something working through matter. So something we've been talking about all through this talk this morning. The potential possibility of what we call the highest and the lowest is inherent in everything. Everything can go up the scale from the lowest to the highest. Everything. It's there. It's in everything. They are not different things. They are the same thing functioning at different levels. So the question then becomes, what level are we going to function at? Are we going to function at the lowest level or higher levels? We're trying to lift ourselves up. He goes on, it's neither low here or low there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within. Everything that is in the unity of the oneness is within us. That's what he's saying. There's different mental depths and heights from which we may look out upon life. How are you looking out upon life? Are you looking out at life from a sense of unity or a sense of separation? That's what he's calling us to do. From whatever level we look, that which we see comes back to us by the invisible law of attraction. So if we look out at life from an idea of unity and oneness, we experience a life of unity and oneness. If we look out at life at a lower level, that we're all in competition, we're arguing with one another, it's a dog-eat-dog world, that's the world that we experience. So then the question becomes, what world do you want to live in? What world do you want to live in? I'm going to skip to the next sentence here. He says, we arrive at a consciousness of unity. We arrive at a consciousness of unity only in such degree as we see that what we are looking for, we are looking with and looking at. Sounds confusing at first, but let's very quickly break that down. We arrive at a consciousness of unity. We're aware at the highest levels of the vibratory scale. We arrive at a consciousness of unity only in such a degree as we see that what we are looking for, God, spirit, the oneness, the highest levels of life, what we're looking for, we're looking with. That is what is in us that is actually looking for meaning in life, for the divine, that which we feel within us that's looking for God is God. So what we're looking for, we're looking with. And we're looking at, which means that everything out there that appears in our lowest levels of consciousness to be separate is also God. When we reach the level of unity consciousness, we recognize that which we've been seeking is what we're looking at and what's within us that's doing the seeking. How beautiful is that thought. So, I just want to express my appreciation for everybody being here today and going through this chapter. I hope that if you've found this beneficial, for those who watched the video, I hope this has been beneficial. Again, I invite you to check out my website, consciousbridge.com. I also invite you to make sure that you support the New Thought Media Network with donations. Go to newthoughtntmedia.org and click on donate, and you can support the programming that you find here on the New Thought Media Network. I also appreciate the questions and comments that we've gotten today. I want to thank everybody for their particular comments, and that they show up next Saturday for another deep dive into the Science of Mind textbook and how it can help you create the highest and greatest life for yourself. So thanks for watching today. Take care.